drafting is going to be adjusted here as well to make sure that Keen is not going to get so relentlessly dominated on that top side of the map. The blind pick into Zeus probably not going to happen again. And so we'll see whether we get a return to the same bans from last time or whether it is going to be something different. They did ban away the Xayah, but it was the third ban last time, and this time the Zeri is going to be taken away very early on by T1.
Let's see what else T1 want to ban here. The Kai'Sa feels like a must ban, so that is respected once again here, especially with the Xayah ban. This feels pretty obvious. And the Azir, definitely a pick that has been very relevant in playoffs already, one that BDD has piloted very well. I wonder if the Sejuani is banned here by T1, if they'll consider first picking it and just going down that avenue, or if they want to try to take that Nico. Nautilus being banned here, so leaving a lot open. Sejuani is open, that Nico's open. The Tristana that we saw, obviously, in Game 1 is open here for BDD. And he'll opt into the Nico, thinks it's the stronger pick right now, and it is kind of an awkward matchup for the Tristana. We saw BDD avoid it in Game 2.
Alistar going to be locked away here by T1. That is a ban that they omitted, and there is the Maokai as well. Could be some Cuz Nico shenanigans if he'd like to go down the Canyon route, but it's only Canyon that we've been seeing playing Nico in the jungle.
I love this from T1, though. Alistar picked up early, weakens Rel. Maokai allows you to play Jace once you do confirm that Nico is going mid, which you can feel very confident about, but it allows you to then be 100% sure before you lock that Jace in that you're dealing with that and just try to chip away at this Nico and keep it far away from you. And obviously the laning phase for Jace can go better than a lot of matchups for this Nico. Ezreal going to get prioritized here with the 80 carry bans. We see it's aiming's best champion next to Kai'Sa, of course, especially if you look at recent results. Doesn't have a great win rate here in the LCK, but it's an aiming special. It was banned away from him last time, so he's going to push that one up the list here. It looks like they want to still go with this Nocturne Nico engage setup here. Is fantastic into Maokai because you could just simply ult over the Nature's Grasp and get backline access.
Yeah, he can also farm up pretty effectively against the Maokai in the early stages of the game. I kind of like that idea as well. And look, if you watch your opposition demolish you with a couple of picks, pick them yourself. See what happens. The Azir is going to come in once again. Currently a 0% win rate in this series. By the two most experienced Azir players in the world, I would hazard to say.
Yeah.
Or at least here in the LCK.
Azir feels much better than trying to play Jace into Nico Nocturne. You know, the Nico, you feel, all right, I'm down with that. But when Nocturne gets on the table, that squishy backline just so difficult to play around. And Ezreal can offer back a lot of poke anyways. Leona taken away here. Let's see what Guma has planned here. Is Varus historically has been very comfortable into the Ezreal, but doesn't feel great into Nocturne here, even though aiming played despite being behind very well in Game 2 with the pick. Seems like a fairly simple one. They'll take away the Sivir, the other scaling AD carry that people are liking way more than the Aphelios right now because of what she offers in terms of wave clear. See if the Varus is going to get a look here, though, because the Maokai stocks go down if you don't have Jace or Varus in this composition.
Hey, yeah, that's true. And they could theoretically still put Jace in the top lane. Like, Zeus was a phenomenal Jace player, so you can still play around that pick if you would like to. Deft also had the historic game of Jace in the bottom lane, which let's just not do that again.
You always mention it, you know? You're the one who brings it up.
Because Jace has kind of been played in every single lane, except, I guess, support. And the jungle. As Tristana going to be banned away also, and I actually really like the respect of the Tristana because no one's really been flexing it recently. I actually kind of thought it would be a good pick for KT to take themselves. Can be a little bit awkward into the Maokai because the Maokai, you can't buster shot him away as he's twisted advancing towards you.
Lucian.
That's going to be an interesting consideration. They will lock that one in. The Lucian Alistar now kind of works.
Yeah, I don't think this is a bad pick by any means. Definitely not the lane dominance and poke power with Maokai sub the Varus would have provided, but it is going to be a little bit more robust in terms of pick potential in the mid game against the squishy Nico. Can also kind of keep her at bay, as the Jax is still left open here, and it will be locked in here for Keen. And I mean, the Rumble is still up. If they wanted to opt into it with the Maokai here, it doesn't feel terrible. It's going to be Ezreal Yuumi, like the old times.
Is it really?
Or it's going to be Galio.
Okay, the Ezreal Galio. Or Ezreal Nico. We're not entirely sure. Oh, Jax Fiora. That is one heck of a matchup if Zeus is going to opt into it. Like you said, could go back to the Rumble, but with the Azir, who does a lot of damage.
I love the GP, actually. Oh, the Jace top you mentioned. I mean, you need some sort of extra damage here, I think, in this composition. The Fiora isn't going to be it. The Renekton is going to be the middle ground here. And they're going to actually opt to the K'Sante. This pick I like the least, I think, of the ones that were hovered, just simply because you can circumvent it in almost every way. The Jax can just simply ignore it. The Nico isn't going to be bothered by it. The Nocturne flies over it. And you're not really looking for front to back with this Lucian. I think Faker is going to have to be doing the heavy lifting with Nashor's Tooth in these team fights if this is how you want to play it out as T1.
It's a really interesting draft on both sides, though. The Lucian being experimented with. Yeah, the K'Sante doesn't really make us too excited, but should be able to mitigate a fair bit of Jax's early laning. But eyes are going to be glued to see whether Lehens on this Galio is going to be able to make it work, because it's one of the oldest tricks in the book, right? The Galio Nocturne combination. We used to see it a few years ago all of the time.
And it's just so Lehens to actually have the confidence to pull this pick out in a best of 5 like this. And it's not the kind of pick you wanted to hide for finals necessarily, but it is one he is going to show here in this third game. And I love that Lehens just is never afraid to say, I'm going to throw a wrench into the gears here. I'm going to do something different. I'm going to go back to an old tech. He's been around for so long. And this composition for KT absolutely can work. The Lucian, I felt like if they had a little bit more damage on the top side, I would have liked a little bit more, or a little bit more hard engaged. The K'Sante is the middle ground here for T1 that I'm not a huge fan of.
Yeah, not necessarily, but I don't think the story is necessarily going to be about that top lane as well. If they can keep Keen at bay, then they can fight the rest of the team. And honestly, that's where all the shenanigans are going to be prepared. Very interested to see what KT's take on the previous T1 draft is going to be, but without that dominant top side of the map, unless Keen does something crazy. Let's jump onto the Rift for Game 3. All right, here we are, ladies and gentlemen, onto the Rift for the third game of this series. We are all tied up 1-1 in our Telecom War Round 2 playoffs match, much like we were in the spring season.
Yeah.
It should go the distance if we were going to allow history to repeat itself. But we'll see who's going to be able to take this game. Some experimentation being done here by KT, namely from this gentleman here. Lehens on the Galio support. I think the last person to play Galio support here in the LCK was Keria.
Yeah, that does seem right. And I don't know if we'll get the stats because regular season versus playoffs, but definitely a good shout out because Keria did pull it off a few times. It was the one of the picks that Faker liked to prioritize early, and then they would swap it as Lehens. Trying to get his flash early here, but he's got a blast cone. He's not too worried. It's actually going to offer some damage.
Faker going to have to blast cone away. This is a bit awkward for the positioning of everyone right now. As there's a flash over from Keria. They get Cuz into the pit. He's going to flash away as well. There's a lot of things being used here. The puppy's getting upset. And I think in the end, everyone's just going to back away. BDD getting control of the mid lane. And that is going to be the result. Keen just going to walk towards Zeus and hits him. Says, that's for being mean to me in the last game.
So a little bit of health advantage here in the jungle matchup going to KT. Cuz losing flash on an early game. Nocturne doesn't feel too bad. Keria having a lack of flash actually feels more impactful, arguably, even though he has Hex Flash.
Oh, no, it feels great for Keria. Yeah. You're absolutely right. Get that thing on cooldown as he does get taunted up just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it is going to feel really bad if you end up getting collapsed on or taking bad trades, because
level 2, pretty strong here. Is Keria not quite there himself, and aiming just demonstrating how much he loves his Ezreal.
He really does, and the fact that the Alistar doesn't have flash, next time this happens, he might just be dead. As this is a 6-game losing streak that Jax is on currently here on this patch, 4-6. So started off with a win streak, but has otherwise felt a little bit absent in some of these games. I think a lot of teams reliant on the Jax pick. And Guma, he's got a pretty huge win rate on this Lucian. This should come as no surprise to anyone who watched him play in the Lucian, Nami, Zeri, Lulu meta, and other metas as well.
Yep, very true. I do think that that was to do with Keria being ridiculous on the Nami as well. But he's also fantastic. Okay, Lehens is flashing as well. Oner is going to have to flash. And so Cuz complained to Lehens and said, my man, there's a flash advantage in the jungle. I don't like it. And Lehens is like, let me see what I can do. And he manages to alleviate it.
And this is just really great play from KT in the early game. Their early game has been fantastic. And this is even with a Nocturne pick. The bot lane Prio allows for plays like this to come through. The Galio, a little bit more agency than a lot of other supports that Ezreal plays with normally. Like the Yuumi, for example, is definitely not making plays like this. And he comes over here and takes a flash away. And now they've taken away some of the camps here. So Oner really feeling the hurt here early on.
Yep.
VDD doing some damage, but lots of control here early for KT, and they've been able to amass a significant gold lead across the jungle and mid lane here.
Ooh, double scuttle as well as a triple bloom on the burst, but still, Faker going to be able to press that Q button after a W, and everything's going to be okay, because there's the double scuttle that we were talking about. Zeus is moving down. He wanted to see whether he could possibly deter Cuz from taking that one away.
Cuz got the good RNG on that scuttle.
Oh, and no mid lane is really going to be able to come over and help out in this particular moment. Oner at 50%, level 3 to level 4.
And you mentioned this in the draft. Like, the Nocturne can just out-farm and out-push these camps, has great clear. And when you have Prio in lanes as well, Cuz could just do stuff like this. His flash is still down, but he's a level up, and there's just no way Oner can contest. Double buff here for this Nocturne. He's just going to sit on it, pull the big chicken away from smite range here, and there's just nothing Oner could do. He's just watching his whole jungle get stolen away. Look at all the camps Cuz has available on his top side.
That's double the camps that has been taken here by this Nocturne, and he can go back to safety and clear out even more. This is devastation, and this is actually, like, a lot of teams would collapse after a game like the last one, right? Like, it is very difficult to mentally restart yourself and realize, hey, it's a fresh series. KT absolutely have done that, as Faker taking a lot of damage once again here as Keria looking to come on over and grab BDD, who doesn't exactly have a massive health bar. Ezreal does, so it looks a bit confusing. And as you can see here, BDD is going to be somewhat unhealthy.
Yeah, doesn't have a ton of mana either, but enough as he hits level 6. And I mean, Oner is just trying to do anything he can.
If he can't get these chickens...
I don't know if he gets these, to be honest. He gets some of them?
And Cuz doesn't have smite, so there's at least that. Cuz still going to move in, though.
Sapling helping out.
And, oh, one! Oh, thank goodness. Oh, man. Okay. Whew. If that Dustbringer had have actually taken away that 1 health on the chicken, devastation. Thankfully, it is going to be secured there, but nowhere near out of the woods.
Yeah, unfortunately for Oner, still significantly behind, but is going to be able to get something back here. We'll take his Wolves. But Cuz is going to be able to get level 6 much faster to make that impact on this map. With not a lot of prio, again, the Maokai with no camps is just not going to do anything here early, even though of these two junglers in terms of gank power, the Maokai pre-6 generally is way higher impact. But the control that Ezreal got early really mitigates some of Lucian's early power. The Nico poke here has been working out a treat here for BDD. And so this early game has really just gone off without a hitch for KT Rolster, still maintaining that 400 gold lead. Not going to start up this first Drake just yet. Cuz wants to have ult ASAP. You can see his experience bar. He's just hit level 5, so he's still a ways away from it.
Yeah, another Scuttle. Going to collect this one towards the top side, go to his Gromp, probably have that level 6. And yeah, the experience bar not quite there just yet, but he might even just move straight towards the Krugs. And yeah, the chickens are also coming on through here as there's the all-out from Zeus because he's in the area. And there he is, he flashes over, gets himself first blood on this Nocturne.
It's just really hard forcing here, and you could do this to great success if you have jungle control or if you're the blue side Cassante, but trying to do it to the enemy red side Jax here in those early levels, he is going to be able to add a lot of damage, and then Cuz just flashes in for the play. That's level 6 with the Gromp, as you mentioned, so he can come down here to the Dragon and make a high impact play before Oner is going to be able to do anything about it. He also just backed, so not going to be able to hit 6 unless he clears the top side of the jungle, so that means that KT should be able to turn this into a Drake play. The bottom side smartly resetting here as Faker. There's just not going to be time for a contest. And Keen does have teleport will be able to pick up that successful play on the top side here. As this aggressive trading is what leads to Zeus. He's like, okay, Counter-Strike is down, gonna pull him over the wall. McKean ults here, has a bunch of his passive stacked up, just gets over the wall, and Cuz is just like, well, I'm here, so it's not a 1v1, you can't win this one.
Yeah, and the fact that the leap strike comes through and then Cuz flashes over, it could have been pretty awkward if Cuz had have like flashed in and then Zeus still kills Keen, and then they go 1-for-1. Instead, he's patient, waits, and then immediately flashes afterwards to secure the kill. Really nicely done. Still means that his flash is just going to be permanently used. I love that, getting the most value out of the cooldown of that flash button. They will be able to take this Drake as well.
You solved early game Nocturne. Just flash constantly.
Yeah, you should flash out of the base. That's the real strat. That tech is too dark to be used here in the LCK so far.
So despite the arrival of the Typhoon today, we got Cloud and Ocean earlier. No Soul of either of those this time in Game 3. See what the Soul does end up being, but KT feeling pretty happy, I think, about the Drake setups they have. Could still be Chemtech.
Yeah,
but ultimately, feeling like your chances are pretty good.
I hope Orcs is actually watching. I'm sure he is. But please, a little bit of attention would be great to make sure that we don't get that Chemtech. We will know if you are not putting full attention into this.
Yeah. Now, Cuz over here going to try to start this one up, but they don't have full control right now as
one of the rotation moving up.
Yeah, rotation up here from Lehens as well. And without his level 6, I think that T1 can actually just hold on to this and control these choke points with the Maokai. KT should be very careful about trying to force this without their Nico being able to set up. They have no prio here in bottom side, so there's a bit of a clock ticking here. But I think T1 should feel comfortable holding on.
Faker just doing a fair bit of damage, but there is the Justice Punch. They try to lock this one down. Pop Blossom's only onto 2. Faker keeps himself alive. Keria is getting relatively low, and now BDD is in an awkward position. Keen gets on over and grabs the kill, though. Another all-out flies down, and Cuz is going to be dead. KT claimed possession of this Rift Herald pit. We'll see whether they'll be able to get any more here. Saplings are going to be thrown in as Keen going to get headbutted out. One of the values of this Alistar is Keen dives back in once again. Lehens is dead, and they're just keeping them at arm's length. BDD can't lock anyone down.
Oner having a bit of a great time here with K'Sante. They're just winning this fight. Absolutely dominant performance here from Zeus again. The flash there to get away, and it's against Jax in this fight, and it looked like KT had won it because the initial fight didn't go very well for KT. Faker is locked down by Lehens' play there. But ultimately, even the Jax, with how well he fights in skirmishes like this, isn't going to be able to stand up to the power of K'Sante. Aiming going to be fine down here, but finds himself in a CS deficit, and T1 striking back in a big way. The Herald's still available. Neither team securing that. The Eye not picked up. So we will have another fight for that very likely here. But it's a little bit disjointed. Lehens decides, okay, I see the angle here onto Faker. We're going to look for the flash taunt. The follow-up with Nocturne is there. You mentioned this combo, but Faker just slides his way out of here. And then the turn for T1 is quite nice. BDD not going to be able to offer a whole lot of damage here. Keen, on the other hand, he absolutely will, but he's on the wrong side of the fight. Once Cuz is deleted and this becomes a 3v3, Zeus is like, hey, my resistances are coming back, and I'm ready to fight this one out. He is absolutely outclassing here. Keria boops the Counter-Strike away, and then he and Oner collapse on to kill Lehens. Flashes to get out. This top laner, man, when he's on, he's on.
Yeah, he's looking real good. And that was just after the whoopsie, as T1 will be able to secure this Rift Herald. The second time of asking, Zeus comes on over to grab himself a plate. Keen Counter-Strikes, but isn't going to be able to stop that one from happening. And I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that Lehens doesn't have that pivotal ultimate to pair with the paranoia that is so useful in these moments. I mean, honestly, like the heroic entrance is fantastic on top of BDD as well. If that Pop Blossom is going to be discovered, yeah, it's, there is a lot of use, but it's not there if you're only level 5, which is a little bit of a worry. And you can see T1 back in the driver's seat have themselves a very minuscule gold advantage as we tick towards 12 minutes. This is by no means a game that is reminiscent of either games 1 or 2.
Both these teams have really good win conditions in the mid game, so it's not like they need to be further ahead than they are. T1, that is to say, even with the Lucian pick here, there's a lot of scaling aspects in this comp. Lucian being one of them if he's set up properly and they have the tools to do it. And I really feel like this Nocturne pick here for KT didn't really get utilized very well on that last fight. Yeah, you got Faker down low, but he didn't die. And yes, Jax ends up killing Faker, but then Faker has successfully zoned Keen out of the fight.
Doesn't quite work. So, what do KT do now? I assume they probably want to just continue stacking up these dragons. 38 seconds until the cloud is going to come up. Then we'll get news on which kind of soul we're going to be fighting for and which rift we're going to be playing on as well. As BDD, looking good with the spacing here as this melee minion is going to march out into an empty mid lane.
Yeah, it's a little tricky if maybe Oner was coming over here or something like that. They could have collapsed onto him if Faker just walks into that, but no tricks to be had. Cuz was in position, did have paranoia, but not going to be able to find anything. As we're going to have a bit of a setup here now on this Cloud Drake. T1 in pretty good position. Oner going to clear that Gromp and then can come over and set up Nature's Grasp. It's very difficult for KT here to get control right now without a Pop Blossom to fight with. And a lot of KT's draft is reliant on pushing fights and starting fights off on their terms. And when T1 has even a small amount of control with this Maokai, as you can see, they're just going to give it up completely. We'll find out what that soul is going to be here in just a moment. Faker maybe overextended.
Yeah, Paranoia is available, and it's Cuz just walking at him. See whether the fear is actually going to come down. It doesn't, because the Shifting Sands is available. Still, T1 do get relatively split up. Still, they're able to collect themselves this dragon very comfortably. Cuz spell shields the Nature's Grasp, but that is after the damage has been done in another Infernal. Very similar to game number 1 as far as the dragons are concerned.
Not great for the composition here of KT. The lack of bushes, the lack of places to hide and engage from. Don't feel great about the Rift. Obviously, the Soul will be great for both teams if they can pick it up. We're split 1-1 here. But less hiding places for a Nico to spring out of, or a Nocturne to ult through, or Jax even. I mean, basically this entire comp is 4 engages and an Ezreal.
Yep.
So for T1, the fact that there's a lot of open space here does empower their composition quite nicely, allows Maokai to know exactly where he's going to be able to get the most value out of his ult as long as they have vision anywhere. I mean, even local wards get more value when there's no bushes for them to be obscured, the vision, or to obscure their vision. And KT, it's not Dunzo or anything like that. They're absolutely still in this game. The Jax is going to be very relevant in sides later. The Ezreal is going to scale up and will outrange the Lucian. It's just going to be, as we often say about execution here of these next few fights, the Rift Herald going to drop to give Faker some money.
Yeah, and it does feel like in an extended team fight, T1 have an advantage. In an early team fight, if the burst is going to land correctly, KT have an advantage. You mentioned side lanes. They are going to be able to figure out some angles there on the KT side with this Jax. But I do think that Gumayusi can be a bit of a difference maker. I think that the culling, if used as sort of that poking tool in any sort of situation where T1 find themselves with map control, can be very, very powerful. But as we can see, I mean, there is nothing moving this game one way or the other at this point in time. A Drake apiece, and it's a Cloud and an Ocean. As, all right, they're going to see whether they can grab an advantage here as the Paranoia comes in. Cuz tanks the entire culling. True Shot Barrage goes wide, and Gumayushi's going to go golden. Okay, can they lock it down? Aiming does manage to get the kill as Cuz is looking to try and flash away. Lehens is pretty dangerous, but Zeus is moving in as well, and there's another kill. So congratulations, KT. You managed to kill Gumayusi, but you lost 3 in the process.
Oh, Guma played that so well, and T1 were ready for it, and KT, huge overextension, is going to allow T1 to take a pretty significant gold lead here. A lot of this money going over to Zeus, which isn't exactly what you want here in this composition. You'd love for the Lucian to be picking up that gold, or the Azir to be picking up that gold, but this play backfires in a huge way. It's another aiming overextension on the Ezreal. We've seen these, they're almost trademarked at this point. A lot of these KT chokes over the years have been from aiming, messing it up, and this particular moment here feels like, okay, opportunity strikes. Look at this, dashes first, cleanses the fear after the flash, and then avoids the True Shot Barrage, has stopwatch as the perfectly timed ult comes through from Oner. Aiming flashes through, gets the kill, but ultimately dies here in the process, and with Zeus showing up, Cuz goes down too.
Well, now Faker is going to deliver Keen to his team. Let's see whether they can take him down. The Counter-Strike is a fair bit of value as Keria is tanking up this turret. He tries to turn it with that last turret shot, but it's not going to work out. True Shot Barrage flying up, wants to try and find the cow, but it's not going to get there.
And they're losing on both sides of the map right now. KT Rolster, 3,000 gold. Now up is T1. They took out aiming. They won the fight bottom side. Took Cuz down as well. Lots of flashes down here for KT. Keen also flashing on that top side. Failed play, or failed survive there. He tries to go for the kill onto Keria after that dive comes through. Is unable to do so. And Keen, he's now not where he wants to be as a Jax in this game for side lane relevance. His turret is gone. The second Herald is going to look like it's going the way of T1 here. They have the faster group up. Keen isn't here.
Yeah, and Oner is now going to just come over and grab control of this Rift Herald. Cuz is over the wall as there's the Nature's Grasp. They get the reset. As now T1 looking for an opportunity.
BDD just doesn't have great access to this fight. Zeus is zoning them out.
But Hens doesn't even have his ultimate. There's the paranoia as KT want to try and stop T1 from being able to secure this eye, but Zeus can be able to move over and collect that if he would like to. Wins the War does absolutely nothing from this support Galio, and that is T1 just going in, taking whatever they want, and then leaving with it in the process.
And I understand the frustration here for KT because this Herald means mid-turret goes down almost 100%. That's already down to low health here. And they can just drop it mid and guarantee that they're going to have prio for this next Drake. It's a really easy setup. The timing of this was huge. But ultimately, because you decide to force this fight here as KT, as we're going to watch Keen and the tragedy that does happen to him. 3 members topside diving for him. Faker sets it up. He looks for the play here onto Keria with the turret shot and the stun, but it's not going to be enough. Nice sleep strike attempt. But the play on the Drake, or rather the Herald, means that you've used your paranoia. That's gone. And how do you set up for this fight now? T1 still have control and they have a Herald. So I understand why you fight for it, but it just wasn't really a great angle there. And Keria just constantly keeping BDD away from T1.
Yeah, not to mention aiming just kind of doesn't do anything at this stage of the game. You need 2 items, and then you all of a sudden start to do things, but it's not really that noticeable until later on in the game where you can kind of be the main character for the team. And will True Shot Barrage Oner here as BDD wants to try and steal it away, but it's not going to work out. So, first Infernal goes to T1. That's the beginnings of the stacking. 3 of them on the table for whoever gets the soul as well. It's going to be a large amount of extra stats coming from the Dragons this game.
And T1 have made some poor decisions, even in playoffs, right, in terms of when they want to fight and what fights they're going to try to take, even when they don't have their win conditions online, for example. But they have not made those mistakes really in this series. And the calls in late game team fights, as was proven yesterday against D+, is where one of their greatest strengths lie. You know, hands or no, Faker's going to show up and make the right call. The team is going to be decisive. They're all going to be on the same page. They're going to punish plays like we saw from aiming there in the bottom lane. And so KT's angles to come back, I feel like almost are reliant on T1 falling apart as a team, and that's just never really been an issue outside of like pre-Poby T1 where there were some communication issues. We were starting to say T1 were looking a little bit like some of the weaker versions of the rosters we've seen, not the roster we saw dominate spring. But right now, it feels like we're watching peak T1 again, and everyone's saying they might show up in playoffs, but no one was ready to believe it except the T1 fans. And they're showing up in a big way. This Herald now going to get dropped down. They were able to secure the Drake without it, and now they can group very carefully here to grab this turret. Not much KT could do in response, especially with Oner here on the flank. And it is respected by KT Rolster. No one's going to get caught by this Maokai.
Yeah, Emperor's Divide going to push Kane underneath this turret as well. I don't think that there was turret aggro, so I'm not sure about the stopwatch. But yeah, you know, sometimes you just want to break it as Keria is jumping on over. There is no turret here, mind you. And so Keen deciding that he's going to need to try and turn this. There's a paranoia as Keen moving towards this Sun Disc, and they realize that there's no Nocturne coming because he just wasn't in range. They tried to fake it out, and Keen now going to press that Counter-Strike button. Looks for a bit of a stun, but I mean, he was always going to die. And now a Baron is being started here by T1. They are wasting absolutely no time with this.
T1's macro on point again, and where is the entry point for BDD? He really needs to get in here. Yeah. He's on a flank potentially.
Does have a teleport available, but it's going to be very, very late, and he's quite far away as Aiming's trying to kite them as best he can. Nature's Grasp comes in. That's the Baron going to T1. Can they get out of here is the question. There's a flash Pop Blossom onto 2, but they're 2 pretty tanky boys as Zeus pulls Aiming out of this fight. He's going all out, and Aiming is trying to get this kill, but he's not even going to be able to. And BDD dies to Faker in the process. Cuz is flashing in, but it looks like it's out of frustration. I think Keria might die. but it takes them a while to even do that.
Oh man, Zeus is playing this game so beautifully. Keeps aiming out of the fight, gets out perfectly with the flash, and now just gonna teleport back bottom side here to again deny Keen the ability to take a turret. Top side, he tries to get the turret there, get that side lane win condition online, denied by Faker's Emperor's Divide. Bottom side here, shut down by Zeus' teleport after Zeus just hard carries this fight. Look at him walk towards aiming here menacingly, see the opportunity with the Nature's Grasp coming through to pull this AD carry out. The exhaust is on. And look at this, over the wall, Q3, aiming, pulled in, and he just cannot follow up on the Pop Blossom, so BDD is dead. And even with these low health bars here, Zeus flashes to get out, shields to block that damage, and Cuz just trying so hard to make something of this, and yes, ultimately aiming will get Keria, but it's a Baron going over. Nobody else goes home in a body bag though, with BDD's engaged, completely nullified by Zeus pulling that Ezreal out.
Yeah, and Zeus is now looking for Keen here as well. Oner will come from behind the turret, and Keen is just being bullied. Cuz gonna move in. There's the Nature's Grasp. His Counter-Strike's pretty powerful, as it turns out. So Keria, he's gonna go in as well. This inner turret, not long for the world, will be taken down. Keen survives, but his structures are certainly not. True Shot Barrage going to stop a few backs. There you go, pretty high value. But it's 5,000 gold, the lead for T1. They have not let up, and that was all based on just one pick onto Keen, so they get to go over and take themselves the Baron.
Valdez mentioned it. I mean, this is still a roster of players who pushed DRX to the 5th game in the World Championship just a few months ago. I mean, it hasn't even been a year yet. This team had some issues after the spring season. There was the MSI, issue, right? T1 wasn't able to perform at the peak that we saw from them in spring with a little bit of a meta shift. And then, it's been a rocky season for them. They're just breaking 50-50 in terms of their win rate. A lot of those losses, of course, with Poby in mid. They come into playoffs as some consider them as underdogs. I didn't really consider them underdogs against D+, but in this series, they massively were. Is Pop Blossom?
Yeah, gonna land on a Faker, but otherwise, BDD is just dead.
He's just dead. And going back to my point, I mean, T1 are showing up big, and we might have an upset on our hands here. I mean, 5,000 gold the lead here right now for T1. They look unstoppable. There's no entry point for BDD in these fights whatsoever. He tries for one there, but they are just too far behind. And KT has spent a whole regular season being out in front, out in first place. There is no behind for this team, and yet in this best of 5, they're tested for the first time in a longer series, and I think they're falling apart a little bit.
It's not looking too hot right now. 6,000 gold is the lead here for T1. The Baron has worn off, so I think the base is going to survive for the moment. But we are well and truly running on the last ergs here. And I think Oner can just come over, take himself this soul point very comfortably by himself. And KT's composition doesn't have a lot of comeback mechanics, right? Like, yeah. I think this very early Ezreal pick is what really worries me the most. Because if that's where we are, if Zeri and Kai'Sa are banned, then aiming is definitely that weak spot that we were talking about earlier on.
No, absolutely. It's not the first time. We saw it this season. We've seen it on other rosters for him in the past. And his return to KT, was one that was, I think, celebrated by a lot, and then he recovered a lot from that really shaky playoff series against Gen G, and then bounced back in a meta that was, okay, he plays Kai'Sa, he's a really great Kai'Sa player, he's like, this is my meta, this is my time, played incredibly well on a lot of other champions, isn't coming up big in this game. To be fair, not out of his own fault, but the draft is warped.
Yeah.
This game is not warped by his play, but the draft doesn't give him the agency to make an impact, and they're reliant on this Ezreal pick for comfort, and it is certainly an issue, Atlas. I completely agree with you, and like the control we saw from Faker on the Nico last game, the Nico is a champion that relies on having the ability to engage, and from this far behind, BD has been less than invisible. He's trying to be invisible here as a ward. Big green eye on the map, but I think the eye is only seeing KT's 5,000 gold deficit.
I love it. It's absolutely fantastic. He's now going to relocate, look for an opportunity. He's going to be spotted on himself.
This is what he has to do to try to hope for an engage. Like, he's basically just furthering my point as we speak of it. He just can't ever find an angle in this one. And Faker is so big, he just destroys him.
No, he absolutely does. Thankfully, we are going to see BDD actually move away from that warded brush that he was sitting in. That would have been very, very sad if T1 had have just sort of walked up there and killed him as, okay, we're warding over here instead. Okay, fair enough.
This is a feast or famine type situation for whatever team falls behind is famining. And yeah, he's really just trying to do something, and the fact that he's not showing on the map really does keep T1 honest. They have to be really careful. They have to move together as a group, but not too stacked up and clear vision. But it does mean that ultimately when he does show here, they're like, okay, move those wards forward. Baron spawns in 20, and they were hoping for greedy T1 group up to try to put deep vision here, and then maybe he could set up for an engage with the paranoia, but T1 don't take the bait. They don't make a mistake. Now they have this group up on Baron with the choke point control. To BDE is nowhere near where he needs to be. He has, of course, the dash cannon and flash to try to look for a really long-range engage, and they have a Galio here to follow up.
Well, True Shot Barrage is going to discover that this Baron is being taken. BDD going to get a bit of a snare onto Zeus. As Cuz dives in, he'll deliver a gargoyle as well, as Keen wants to find a counter-strike. They get into the backline as Faker takes a fair bit of damage. He then dives forward. Gumayusi gets a double, and KT are too busy trying to deal with Zeus to be able to do anything about it. And Zeus might die. No, he's not. He's absolutely fine. Keen's going to be able to take down Faker, but not before getting a good old patented thumbs up. And T1 back on the Baron now, aiming, trying to get to work. Misses a whole bunch of
no
Qs.
way.
And if Zeus just comes over and kills him, that would be so very sad.
Oh my god.
He's going to do it.
Oh,
going to help out.
Oh man, I don't know if you recover from this, KT. I don't know if you're coming back. You got absolutely dunked on in Game 2, and in Game 3, the same is happening, but it's been more finesse from T1, not just an early lead with a Rumble taking a 2,000 gold lead at 8 minutes. T1 just absolutely dumpstering them here a little bit, I have to say, and this is not close. It's not close at all.
Well, it's not. There is still more to play for after this, but this is looking like T1 are turning this series on its head. A lot of low health bars, though, as T1 do get out of here. Sentinel going to turn up. There's the paranoia. BDD looking for that angle if he can find it. As there he goes, headbutt just to get rid of him. Keria is going to go golden, and Taunt does come through onto Zeus, but he's so tanky. And the wallets are starting to really get heavy in this one. Oner dives forward. Oh my goodness, a passive getting him all of his health back. And Ezreal from back in the base is trying to help out with a True Shot Barrage that does absolutely nothing. 10,000 gold is going to be the lead. And T1 are just pushing for the victory.
He's picking up a death cap, but he's not going to get to use it. He is not getting any big pop blossoms this game. Excuse me.
Pop blossoms.
Plop blossoms in this one. Unfortunately, T1 just dominating here. Zeus showing up tonight. He is absolutely in peak form right now. He's got Anathema's chains built up, and T1 just taking out these inhibitors. The road to victory here for KT now so much longer, so much more distant. Felt like walking into this series was going to be expectations for many, a 3-0 or 3-1 victory for KT. The road was paved with a weak win from T1 yesterday over D+ with having rocky early games, but the early games in games 2 and 3 were anything but, as Cuz is just trying to buy space for a Lehens ult here so they can get Keen and BDD in here. Zeus, by the way, who's really the main character of this fight. Yeah. A level up on BDD keeps him at bay. 1v2's aiming. Like, let's pan over to the real hero here, who actually then kills the Nico, and yes, Faker does go down here. Consolation prize, kills the Nico, and then Keria baits aiming back in, and he actually makes the play here and kills the Ezreal with all of these big Baron buffed minions here in the way. There is nothing aiming can do. Now Zeus is 2 levels up on him. And then yes, he does get picked off here by a really heavy commitment from KT to try to get into this backline with the low health bars. BD respawns, comes over, but doesn't have flash, mind you. Great stopwatch here from Keria. And BDD again, just coming up empty, unfortunately, on this Nico because his team is too far behind.
I swear, Keria is just ridiculously good. When he's in form, that man just does pretty crazy things. This was, remember, first pick on the red side for T1, and they absolutely made it work. 1-1 and 12 on the Alistar. They'll clean up the rest of this base, taking him a little bit of time here. Glad we got through the replays, as we've got a big old flanking teleport here from Keen. One last ditch effort here for KT as they look to defend their last remaining Nexus turret. Keen's walking in. They're looking to get on top of Gumayusi as the Emperor's Divide is fantastic. That's going to keep them away from the President. Lehen's going to be taken down here as, once again, Keria playing bouncer. Zeus doing the same thing. The Q3 is going to be fantastic. Faker picking up a bunch of kills. And yeah, Keen, you've got a really cool counter-strike, but I don't think it's going to be saving this game. Aiming back onto the fountain. Gumayusi going to lock down that kill, and T1 will dominate KT in game number 3. Game 1, not close. Game 2, even not closer, but on the side